All right, so here we are, 5 days to go until Election Day. It's absolutely crazy, but we are in that last week now. And in today's video, we are going to go over to swing states. As you can tell, I am not home right now. I am in Miami, so I'm doing it from my hotel room in Miami. I just got the most recent numbers, so we're going to go ahead and go through those and look at the good spots for the Democrats and maybe the not so good spots. I'm not going to say bad spots because I think all of these states are close, but there are some places where Democrats are doing a little bit better, and they could do a little bit better in other places. So let's go ahead and delve into those. All right, so let's go ahead and first look at the nowcast models for the states that don't have partisan registration. All right, so here is the nonpartisan nowcast model range. So you can see in Georgia, we have a big variance, but it is still close between the Democrats and Republicans. It can really go either way, but there is a big variance. When it comes to Wisconsin, Michigan, the variance is a little bit smaller, but the Democrats are doing really well. As you can see right now, the worst that the Democrats can do, according to the nowcast models, is around the 48% of major party votes. So yes, there is still a chance in the worst case scenarios that the Democrats lose these two states. So there always is a chance, but it is much more on the side of winning than of losing. So that's good. And as far as Texas is concerned, it's still not doing a lot for the Democrats. That would be nice if we could pick that up, but it's just looking like that might not happen. But we could be looking at partisan changes happening in the state. So all of a sudden we're talking about Tarrant County, Denton County, Collin County becoming more Democratic and significantly so in this election. It won't pick it up on this nowcast because it has to do with previous elections. So overall with these, it looks good for the Democrats in Wisconsin and Michigan. They are still holding their own. They're still strong. Both of the nowcast models have flatlined at really good odds for the Democrats, around the 70 plus range that they're likely to win the state. But remember, that means there's a 30% chance that the Republicans win it too. So don't take 70% as a 100% given. So one of the things I mentioned in Georgia is this week, are we going to see that in-person early voting just sharply spike? Or are we going to see it flatlined? And it looks like it's the latter. It does look like it's flatlining right now. So some of this is helping the Democrats, but not too much. They are seeming to get a little bit closer and bringing down the margin when we're looking at the evening votes that come in. So the Democrats are able to keep it steady, but it is still extremely tight in Georgia, and it really can go either way. As far as Texas is concerned, as I just mentioned, we might be seeing a change of the political landscape, which would not be picked up in these nowcast models due to the fact that these nowcast models are based on previous history. And if this is a shift that keeps going up, the shift could be even bigger than what the nowcast model says. So we really have to start considering this possible trend and change in Texas, but we won't know until Election Day. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the overall turnout rate. We can see both Georgia and Wisconsin are almost at 50%, which is impressive, especially in Georgia, since they had 66.2% overall in 2020. They could still break that record. Michigan is much lower. They did start their in-person early voting much later than the other states, so they'll probably catch up. And Texas is at 40.9%. It's eventually going to get up as well. It's going to be a good chunk of the composition, but in Georgia, Michigan, and Texas, you don't have really high turnout rates in those states. All right, so now let's go over to the nowcast models for the states that have partisan registration, because there are some things that are happening here and I really don't know how to interpret them yet. And we'll get to it in a second, but let's just go ahead and look at the nowcast models first. So as you can see in Pennsylvania, the Democrats are still ahead, but this number keeps on going down and down. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Now, North Carolina is very close, 48.5 to 51.5. It's gotten a little bit more Democratic, but not much. Nevada and Arizona are still a pretty decent gap between the two parties, but with the independents starting to vote now, we might start seeing these gaps come down. All right, so here we go with the turnout rates. As you can see, Pennsylvania's are pretty low, and we kind of already knew that because we know very few people actually vote by mail, so only about a quarter of those who vote, if that, will qualify to be in this little group right here. North Carolina, Nevada, and Arizona all do have pretty good turnout rates for the parties. As you can see in North Carolina, though, we see the turnout rate for the Republicans quite a bit ahead of the Democrats. In Nevada, the same thing as well, but in Arizona, you can see it's just absolutely dead even, with the independents actually starting to make up more of the vote. Now let's look at two states. Let's go ahead and look at Pennsylvania, because I mentioned something in the last video, and that was that with Pennsylvania, we only have a certain amount of people who are essentially qualified right now to vote. Those people who have requested mail-in ballots or have gone to an authority like the clerk's office or whatever and requested a ballot. So we don't have 100% of the people qualifying in this, only those who requested a ballot. And let's go ahead and look at the ballot return rates right now. All right, so you can see the return rate for the Democrats is impressive at 76.6, but the Republicans are actually catching up. This gap was about 4% last time. It's now 2.2%, so we'll see if that gap gets closer. As far as others, they're really far behind at 41.9%, but they're only going to be about 10% of this group of voters, so it won't be too concerning. So I wanted to go ahead and tell you, as I've been telling other people as well, even though this is going more Republican, it is still a small part of the vote. We can just be seeing some changes in what's happening, and that is absolutely likely. You might have more people who usually vote on Election Day voting early on the Republican side or whatnot. It could just absolutely change, but it is such a small percentage that I don't think this is going to move the needle much. It just means that the Democrats are going to require a lot more when it comes to Election Day. Now let's go ahead and go to North Carolina, because this is the one that I think is kind of interesting and kind of scary maybe, but just kind of an unknown. So let's go ahead and look at North Carolina. So here is the problem that we have with North Carolina right now. If we look at the composition of the early vote in North Carolina overall in 2020 and 2022, and then what we have right now in 2024, you can see the Democrats are way down. So they had 37% and 38% in 2020 and 2022 respectively, but they're down to nearly 33% now. That is a big drop. As you can see, the Republicans have gained a few percentage, but you also, and this could actually help the Democrats, you do have a lot of independents now actually making up that composition. So right now, you truly do have nearly a 33-33-33 split, but this is a group of voters that the Democrats usually dominate with. And right, so this is the problem that we have right now in trying to understand these numbers, is that the Democrats have come down quite a bit. Now, what can this mean? Well, it can mean one of three things. One, those voters who are the Democratic ones who are just not making up that gap, they might show up the rest of this week over the weekend, and they might shoot up that gap. That's probably unlikely that they'll make up that much ground, but they could. It's absolutely possible. The second option, which is one I don't like and one I actually think isn't going to happen, is that with these numbers going off the historical trends, the Democrats are going to get absolutely decimated in North Carolina. But there's no polling information, no data, nothing whatsoever that indicates that this is going to be a lopsided contest in North Carolina. So that's why I don't adhere to that. But the third thing that I've been kind of poo-pooing on, and I got to say, now we actually possibly have some empirical evidence that it's happening. We might be having more Election Day voters. So expect possibly a lot more voters on Election Day. So that is where we are with the election. It's close, it's tight. We have 5 more days. Go out there and vote. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day wherever it is you are. Bye-bye.